The Jacksonville Jaguars win a tough, ugly game in Indy, but they get to 12 wins. We'll talk about what's ahead for hopefully what we'll call the AFC South champions next week.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is, in fact, your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast that you can find wherever you get your podcast. Just make sure you tap in to wherever that location is so you do not miss an episode of the show, because we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is the #1 sports podcast network. Let's get right to it. Here's what we're going to talk about. It's postgame, man, and the Jaguars get to 12 wins. They win number 12 and got it in the bag today in Indy. In the second half of the show, we'll discuss what's ahead. One more game against a team that you can't stand, and you get a chance to do something that the Jaguars haven't done, in a few years at least, and that's win the division, first of all, and then 13 wins. Somebody that does a podcast about the Jacksonville Jaguars kind of looks like me, said that the Jaguars had a chance to go 13-4, and everybody thought I was crazy. So we're on the precipice of that, so let's talk about it. Look, it wasn't Liam Cohen's greatest moment today, right? It just was not. They got away with some stuff, even when they started going for it late in the game. The one that they converted at the end, the fourth down, you just want them to take points, right? I just think it's just a matter of them just saying, you know what, we're going to put the game away. We're going to put the game away. But by doing that, chasing those points early, you actually prolonged the game to the point where the Colts were throwing a Hail Mary at the end of the game. The Colts were throwing a Hail Mary at the end of the game that could have possibly given the Colts a tie, and all they had to do was kick an extra point. And it was in a game that the Jaguars absolutely dominated. So we ain't going to be too upset about it, because the bottom line is they won, right? Nobody apologizes for wins. To go back to what Liam Cohen has said and to give credit to what he's saying, we don't apologize to win, man. Winning is harder in the National Football League, and winning 12 games is really, really difficult in the National Football League, and the Jaguars have managed to do that in different ways. Some of it has been pretty, some of it has not been so pretty. It's been a little bit ugly, but it does not matter. They got it done. I warned y'all the other day on the show, coming up to it all week. Just like I said, they were going to blow Denver socks off and all of this stuff. I just have gut feelings about these types of things. And to me, this was just a game where, even though Indy found out that they weren't going to the playoffs because their season was over, they have enough on that team to make it hard for you. They got some good players on that squad, and they got a good scheme that kind of lines up really well with what the Jaguars want to do. I was a little bit surprised today. I'll give you a little bit of this before we hit the midway point. I was a little bit surprised today that the defense, even though they stepped up at the end, there were some times when I didn't think that they were sticky enough, considering Phillip Rivers, one, doesn't scramble, and two, the thing is for him, the mental part of it is going to be the part that doesn't go away, right? I thought they gave him too many pictures. They gave him too much clear stuff, even though he did not have a great statistical game. And it sounds like, you're nitpicking when you're talking about a quarterback that was 17 out of 30 for 147 yards. He was trying to do enough just to keep them engaged and involved. And when the Jaguars had opportunities to score 3 times that they were inside of the scoring range, which for the Jaguars is like as soon as you cross the 47, 48-yard line. But they were closer than that. They were inside the 20, the 30, and the 25, and they came away without points 3 times. And to me, you got to get points in those situations, because the Colts ain't going to score a whole bunch of points. They can't. And even if they do, it's going to be like pulling teeth, because their quarterback just can't stretch the field. So I was a little bit shocked at the approach to it all today. I just feel like Liam probably felt like he had the better team. So why not take more risk if you have the better team? And maybe that's the approach that they have. We ain't going to beat up on them for it because I told you, this doesn't mean anything as long as they got on the plane today and came back home with a win. None of this stuff was going to really matter, the how or the what, as long as they didn't come out of there banged up. I thought Trevor got hit a little bit too much today. So that was a little bit of a concern in the game early on. But for the most part, a win is a win. And now they're 12-4, and they can go 13-4 next week and beat up on the hapless, sorry Tennessee Titans next week. So we'll talk about what's ahead and some of the things that you do want to see them do heading into the playoffs. They win next week, and they're probably going to host either the Texans or the Chargers with the way that it looks. Baltimore and Pittsburgh are going to be playing for the division next week because Baltimore lost. So they're going to be the 4 seed. Whichever one of those teams gets in is going to be the 4 seed. And the Jaguars, if they win next week, they'll be the 2 or the 3. Because the Chargers, I think, have to play the Broncos or something like that come next week. And they can beat them because of the way that Denver plays. So they're going to either be the 2 or the 3 seed 9 times out of 10. They win the game next week. You host the playoff games. You're going to play the Texans or the Chargers. And either way, you're going to get somebody that this fan base is going to be happy to see. You're either going to get a chance to whoop up on Justin Herbert again, or you're going to get a chance to avenge the only loss the Jaguars have on this side of the second half of the season, and that's against the Texans and all of the stuff and the trouble that they might be. People think that they're invincible, and they're not. They almost lost to the Raiders, and then they, had a game yesterday that they could have lost too. So we'll talk about it. We'll chat about it here in the second half. What do the Jaguars have to do moving forward? We'll get to it in just a second here on post-game show of Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. The holiday season is one of the best times for sports, bowl games, big basketball matchups, playoff pushes. It's all happening at one time. And while we're all making choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy, man. Just pick more or less on 2 or more player stat projections. And you know what that means? That means you will win. What do you win? Well, it's totally up to you, man, and how much you're willing to wager. But I tell you what, it is the absolute truth in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. So download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it is good to be right. And today's show sponsor brought to you by Gusto. Let's be real. No one starts a business for the joy of calculating taxes and tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. That's where Gusto comes in to take the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR so you can focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is an all-in-one remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all from one place without the hassle or hidden fees. Try Gusto today at gusto.com/LockedOnNFL for 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's right, 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/LockedOnNFL. One more time, that's gusto.com/LockedOnNFL. All right, man, getting right back to it here on the postgame show. Jaguars win 23-17 in an ugly game. I saw everybody on social media getting mad, going crazy, doing all of that stuff. You should have been, because it was one of those games that kind of made you pull your hair out. Trevor Lawrence played well again, one throw aside, 23 out of 37, 263 yards, and 2 touchdowns running the football, used his legs again. Oh, gritty middle Georgia Trevor doing his thing, isn't he? Travis Etienne had a pretty respectable day, averaging 4.5 yards a carry, 17 carries for 76 yards. Also got involved a little bit in the passing game with 2 catches for 16 yards. The big guy in the passing game today was Parker Washington. What's new? 8 catches, 115 yards. Brenton Strange, 3 catches, 54 yards. Jacoby Myers, 6 for 39, but he had the catch of the game and what was a real good throw. One of those, I got a big arm, ain't but 3 or 4 of us in the league that can do this throws by Trevor Lawrence. And it was a very nice play. It was critical, too, because it allowed the Jaguars to go forward and extend the play late in the game when they really needed to do that. They really did shut down the Colts all the way around. Jonathan Taylor had 70 yards on 21 carries. Defensively, Trayvon Walker had a real good game. It won't show up on the stat sheets, but he had a very good game. He ended up with a sack. Josh Hines-Allen got a sack. A weird little penalty there at the end for Josh Allen. But I think this was a game where the coaching staff was going to say, you know what, we got one. We got out of there. Let's prepare for next week. But there's some things that we could do a little bit differently. I know if I was a future opponent of Jacksonville, there's some things I saw in this game, I'd be like, okay, if they ain't going to be willing to play man-to-man on these receivers when the quarterback can't scramble, maybe they don't feel like they can guard people man-to-man. So I do think to try to force them into trying to do that. That's what I would do. It seems like man-to-man would have been harder for Phillip Rivers to make those stick throws because he doesn't scramble. He can't create that extra time. He would have to get rid of the ball really early. So it seems like if you can jam the quarterback or jam the wide receiver, is it like maybe the Jaguars were just afraid to give up big plays because they felt like, and that's a good explanation, maybe they felt like they weren't too sure that the Colts could put enough drives and plays together for the entire game in order to, cause a problem. And the coach really only had a couple of sustained drives. And when you take out bogus penalties or whatever, they probably wouldn't have had those. So player of the game on offense is Trevor Lawrence. Player of the game on defense, I know Trayvon had a really good game today. I'm going to give it to Jarrian Jones, though, because Jarrian made a play that was absolutely critical. He could have had a pick 6 if he did not get tripped up. Even though the Jags only got 3 points out of it, those 3 points gave them the lead, and those were the 3 points they needed, at that time to take the lead in the game, to put the onus on the Colts to try to put the foot on the gas. So Jarrian Jones was a big play. He also had a couple of other plays where he was real sticky. Montaric Brown had another couple of breakups in this game and got some late hands on some plays that looked like he was beat. But that's the thing. See, he gave up some leverage and the receiver got behind him, but Rivers couldn't get him the ball in time, and Montaric caught up and made a good play on the football. So if there's one negative coming out of the game, is Brian Thomas Jr. double popping on balls again, man, and not getting off the line, not being able to release and stack fast enough to get out on his route. And the legend, Jimmy Smith, we went back and forth a little bit on social media about it. Jimmy says that if Brian improves his stance off the line and not stand straight up, he'll get off the line easier and get into his route faster. I'll take his word over. He's a Hall of Famer in my book, and I'll take his word over other people's word. But good game today. Jaguars, just get on a plane in Indy, come home, regroup, get ready in front of a raucous crowd next week to win the AFC South and win 13 games in Liam Cohen's first year as head coach. We got the squad show coming up for you a little bit later on. While I got y'all here, if you're everydayers, man, make sure you tap in and you can go even further. Nothing will ever change with the podcast. I'll be here every day for free, just like I always am. But if you want a little bit more juice, look down in the description, man, and click on the Everydayer program where you get ad-free shows on audio and you get stuff like perks, like you can get perks to our store where we sell our merchandise and get all of the dope merchandise that we're putting out. Other than that, Everydayers will be here tomorrow with Locked On Jaguars. The other thing is make sure you tune in for the squad show. That'll come up here at about 6:30 with MOB, Mia O'Brien, and Marquise Ogden. And they allow me to come sit in each and every time they do it. and I'm glad to do that. So the Jaguar Squad Show will be coming up pretty soon. Once again, the Jags go to 12-4 with a 23-17 victory. It was ugly while they were doing it, but the second it goes to a W in the win column, it's no longer ugly. Wins are wins. They don't distinguish how pretty they are. If there's a W, it's a W, and that's what it is. All right, we'll see y'all a little bit on Squad Show and tomorrow on Locked On Jaguars. Where is your team every day, man? Make sure you tap in. It's all about y'all, the fans. It ain't about us. It's about y'all. Jags win.